Hello, I'm Scott Smyers from 382 Central Street. It's very good to see you. I haven't been able to make it to a live meeting, so this is nice to see everybody face to face. And I've been watching meetings online for, ever since the pandemic started. And one concern that I have, that I know some of the members of the board have as well, is the lack of people identifying themselves fully when they come to the microphone to make public comments. I think it's important that they identify themselves by their first and last name and their address, so we know that they're a legitimate person that's from our community. I'm a very big proponent of free speech and speaking your minds, but I think that there are some real concerns that we have if you don't identify yourself appropriately. And I saw a back and forth a couple of meetings ago with someone who did not want to give their address, and they eventually just didn't give their address and still made comments, and I don't think that's right. So that is my main concern, and I'd like you to take that into consideration moving forward with the upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's fine, Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cadillac at Paul Revere Road. At your last regular meeting, the one before the goals, a young man made some comments about me, which, since he only identified himself as David from Great Road, Scotts Point, I will respond to him in this forum. David from Great Road made some comments about people with mental problems, but then towards the end of his comments, and I will read, quote, "In closing, I did hear the older white gentleman last week. He said he never heard of racism in Acton. It wasn't a problem." He goes on, I'll come back to the rest of the quote in a minute. Now, there were only two gentlemen in the room that evening, Danny Factor and me. I don't think Danny would dispute that this reference is to me. I'm definitely older than Danny Factor. If he was here, we could discuss that, but given the quote that young David from Great Road is using, I don't think Danny would want to claim that it was him. So that was me, and that can be verified by anybody who cares to listen to the full meeting on ActonTV or YouTube. Now, to what he said, that I never heard of racism in Acton, that I said that I never heard of racism in Acton, it wasn't a problem. Young David from Great Road has a problem. Nobody ever said that, not me, not anybody else, not at that meeting, not any place that I have heard. It's a fabrication. It's one of the comments that's frequently used in different contexts by those who want to come up with some evidence that there's white privilege, racism in Acton. And those of us who say, as I have said many times, that Acton is not a racist town, this is supposedly the evidence that it is, except that it's not true. It's a lie. The rest of the quote of young David, again, I did not hear the older white gentleman last week. He said he never heard of racism in Acton. It wasn't a problem. He goes on, I am not surprised. Racism is not a single act. It is a system, and the system was designed to benefit him, meaning me and other white people. And hearing his comments, it sounds like the system has worked. His statements are evidence of that. Well, since the statement is fabrication, it proves only that that's what young David is willing to say, not me. So, if I could speak to young David, if you have any integrity, you'll come here and explain why you made that false comment. It doesn't help to try and get this town back to normalcy. These are false statements. They just continue the division, and perhaps you, the board, can have an opinion on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else here, is there anybody online? Matt?
There is one calling user, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, there's a second hand that just went up. Calling user was first, just to let us know who you are and where you're from.
Okay, we'll take those two, Matt, and that's all.
Calling user should be able to speak. Yeah, I'm going to pass. Okay, the next is from Rev. Susan Lyons. I'm not sure if I said that last name correctly. If you could correct me, that would be appreciated. Susan, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Very good. Thank you. I'm so sorry. My last name has changed. It's actually Susan Lyon-Murray. Lyon-Murray. Just recently gotten married, but I live in Acton housing, and Kelly Cronin asked if I would attend to represent housing. So I don't, I've been listening to everybody talking. I'm not sure what my questions would be just yet. If you want to know background, I've been a full-time minister for 40 years.
Susan, hold on just a second. Are you asking to be considered as a board member for the AHA?
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought that already had been stipulated.
No, that's true. That's right. I just wanted to confirm. That's agenda item 6, and we'll get to you in a little while. We have
All right.
agenda items to go first.
Very good. Thank you.
So raise your hand again at that time, please.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, we'll proceed with the second agenda item. Updates today, Mr. Manager.
Thank you. Just quickly, that the Board of Health is meeting tonight virtually, and I'll be tracking what happens at that meeting and report to the board if anything happens during that meeting that's newsworthy. Also, just want to announce that we awarded the Municipal and Public Safety Employees of the Year Award recently. Tricia Sullivan, a police officer in Acton PD, was recognized this year for her great work and kindness that she shows as an officer in this community. And there was a great reception for her amongst her colleagues, both current and former, who came to see her and see her get the award last week. And then earlier in the summer, we awarded the municipal award to Cheryl Ball and Heather York, who did tremendous work over the last year related to COVID, in addition to what they do all the time. And I also just wanted to mention two other upcoming things. One is the local rapid recovery program. We've done some outreach directly to businesses on Great Road, to customers on Great Road, including some tabling last week to talk to people out in front of the storefronts. And the consultant will be giving us the results and recommendations, I believe, right after Labor Day. And so I can share that with the board, and then we'll have a public presentation, hopefully your first meeting, if it's ready. And then another update, and this is timely because it's the #1 goal for the board, Asa Parlin House, we have the cost estimates and the updated design plans will be delivered this week, and I'll share those with the board, and we'll have a public presentation to you in September. So just a few things. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Does any member have a member minute? Dean?
Yeah, a couple items. Just a remembrance. We recently had two retired longtime town employees pass on. First was Ed Ellis. His services were last week. Ed had been town clerk back in the late 90s and early 2000s. Was a wonderful individual, very involved with the town. And he actually came to town employment quite late in his life. I think he was probably about 60 when he started here. But, you know, if you ever want to talk about an overactive senior citizen, he was the guy, because he just kept doing that. He was very active in the Lyons Club, and in his spare time, he spent a whole lot of time in the transportation department at Emerson Hospital wheeling people around in wheelchairs. He was probably double the age of most of the people he was pushing around. So Ed will certainly be missed. He was a good friend. Second, retired firefighter Richard O'Leary had also passed on. I believe his services were last week, or they might be this week. Again, longtime employee. I think he was 65. It's just so sad to see these people go. And the last comment that I have is, you know, I think the board should consider, if not tonight, I think we should probably follow up at a subsequent meeting with the response to Charlie Cadillac. I think that he deserves a response. I think, you know, we have to return to the point of civility at all public meetings. We should be civil as board members, and I think we should expect civility and and proper representation by people speaking from the floor. I think that if people make untoward statements, as this individual did from Great Road the other day, I think that they should be called out on that. Not to deny anybody freedom of speech, but I think that we need to make sure that's accurate, and we need to make sure that there are no ad hominem attacks on people, which is what I think happened most recently. And certainly, I think this board should take a stand that everybody here should act in a civil manner. And to the other point, I still maintain, and maybe this would have solved some of the problems, we should insist upon, if somebody gets up here, either virtually or in person, and wants to address the board, we should verify their identification, that, you know, have them declare first and last name and address, so that if a follow-up needs to be done, it can be done in a proper fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a member minute? Hemaja? Yep, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. So just two quick things. The Water Resource Advisory Committee is looking for two people who would be interested to serve as volunteers as alternate members. They're basically looking for someone who has an interest in the environment, experience or work experience through school or professionally in ecology, environmental science, environmental engineering, or a related field, and enough time as a resident of Acton to understand our water issues, land use issues, etc. So just wanted to put that out there. If anyone is interested, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can forward your information along. The other thing is that the Water Land Management Advisory Committee is restarting again, and they're also looking for people. I'm specifically looking to recommend one person. So if anyone is interested, it's a very similar criteria to the Water Resource Advisory Committee. So feel free to reach out. And if you have any questions, I can definitely connect you with the right person. That's all for me.
Thank you. Okay, Jim.
Yeah. Just to start, to sort of help start this discussion, I know young David, so I'm happy to talk to him and, with Charlie's permission, get you and him talking as a starting point. The other thing I know about David as a mental health professional in my conversations with him is that he's professionally reluctant to use his last name in a public setting because of, he has clients who are within Acton. And, you don't want to make yourself publicly available necessarily as a therapist. There's real problems that can happen, especially if you're working with volatile people. So I understand why he didn't use his last name or identify himself. But that still doesn't mean that, there could still be a very useful conversation about, what was actually said and who meant what and, why it happened. So I'm happy to initiate that part. And I'll talk to Charlie first before I go ahead.
Can talk later, not.
Great, yeah, we'll talk. I'll talk to Charlie after the meeting or sometime very soon to see if this process can be initiated.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 3, and for that, I'll take a motion to open a meeting of sewer commissioners.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
David Martin,
Aye.
Dean Charter,
Aye.
Fran Arsenault,
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant, aye. Imogen Agaretti,
Aye.
that's unanimous.
Great. I think there are two things, two related things tonight. One is, sorry, I'm just trying to find all the documentation for this. Just hold on just a second, please. Here we go. The first is a request that we approve a connection to the sewer by, I'm just looking here, hold on, for the Hawks Crest Reserve at 74 Main Street and 5 Fletcher Court. All that stuff's in the packet. One thing related, which I'd like to cover first, is that so let me give a little background. So technically, the privilege fee is owed when the building permit is taken out. Traditionally, we have, since the beginning of the sewer district, allowed people to not pay the fee, just get the connection approved, and then actually pay the privilege fee at the time of occupancy, provided that they pay interest on the privilege fee in the meantime, between the time that they take out the building permit and the time they get an occupancy permit. But about a year and a half ago, we increased the privilege fee, but neglected to increase the interest fee, which at that time was set in absolute dollars. So I would first propose that we bring that fee up to date, which would be the interest rate we use for betterments is 1.55% per year, and I would take a motion to raise the sewer privilege fee interest deferral from $15 a month to 1.55% per annum of the sewer privilege fee.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and now, does anybody have any discussion on that? Seeing none, then we'll vote. Jim, would you please call the roll?
David Martin,
Aye.
Dean Charter,
Aye.
Fran Arsenault,
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant, aye, and Imogen Nagaretti.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. The second thing is the approval for, the requested approval for connection to the sewer for the development at 5 Fletcher Court and 74 Main Street. Those are, in this proposed development is 10 units. One of the units has already paid the betterment. The 9 other units have not, and so they require a privileged connection. The fee for a privileged connection to the sewer district is $30,000 per betterment unit, and a single-family home is 1 betterment unit. So that's $270,000. I'll take any discussion now. Dean.
Yeah, so I read the unsigned memo from Engineering Department about this, and I've got a couple of questions. One is, it seems to imply that 5 Fletcher Court is not presently within the sewer district.
That's correct.
So what you're asking is to actually extend the size of the sewer district?
So that's an interesting question, right? So when I'll just give an example, but that's, I'm not denying that the question is still an interesting question. If suppose someone has a large piece of land with 1 single-family house on it. At the time the sewer district is created, that's 1 betterment unit, no matter how much land they have. And then if they later sell it to a developer, which develops, for example, 10 units, they would pay the difference at that time through privilege fees. If, however, that's not part of the sewer district at all, we would, I think you're right, we might have to expand the sewer district to include that.
So to follow up a little further, so I would presume that we'd have to take a vote, there'd have to be some action taken to extend the sewer district. Because, you know, certainly if somebody wants to build something at 74 Main Street, they can plug into the sewer because they paid the fee already and it's part of the district. But the 9 units that are being proposed on Fletcher Court are not within the district. So first off, I think we would need to extend the district. Secondly, I'm a little puzzled by the second from the last paragraph in this unsigned memo from engineering. It says, it is not anticipated that the design flow will impact the available capacity within the sewer system, which will be determined by a review by the town's sewer consultant. So first off, it boggles my mind that we can add 8 residential units of, I don't know, 3 or 4 bedrooms each, I suppose, and it will not impact our capacity because obviously there's going to be flow from those units. And secondly, when it says, which will be determined by a review by the town's sewer consultant, so this was an assumption by the author of this unsigned memo, but did not actually have any information from dealing with our sewer consultant. So I've got a couple of issues. One is, you know, if we're going to expand the sewer district, I think we need to be careful about this to make sure that, you know, that the capacity of the present plant, as I understand it, is finite. The capacity of the infiltration basins is finite at present until it's expanded. And I think we really need to make sure that if we're going to expand the district, it be done in a reasonable and comprehensive manner and that it be to the best benefit of the entire town, rather than this piecemeal, adding a little bit here and a little bit there, and we don't really know what the impact is going to be, and we don't even have a report from our unnamed sewer consultant. There's going to be other things going on in town. We've been hoping for years that the infrastructure work at Kelly's Corner is going to spur some commercial development and perhaps restaurants and that sort of stuff. And are we going to need more capacity there? Do we really want to squander it on, a couple of single-family homes at the far edge of the district that aren't actually in the district? So I think that this is really premature. And I think that before I could possibly vote for this, I think we really need to get a lot more background and meat on the bones of this proposal.
Yeah, I completely understand. Just so you know, if this was considered one piece of property with some frontage in the district, then it's in the district. If it was considered other separate pieces of property that happen to be contiguous, then it's not in the district. But I absolutely agree that the question needs to be answered. So, for example, again, the example I was using, suppose you had an old farm, not currently running as a farm, but maybe it was 10 acres, right? And currently you had one single-family home on it that had frontage on the district. That whole property is part of the district, even though at the time the district is built, that has only one single-family home. But I understand that we need to find out the answer to your question, and that's exactly what privilege fees are for.
So, Mr. Chair, I checked with the chair of the planning board because 5 Fletcher Court has started a hearing at the planning board but hasn't finished it. The hearing is still open. So, speaking to this being premature, it does seem to me that until there's an actual permission to put up these 9 units, it would be premature of us to approve 9 SBUs because we don't even know what the final configuration will be. It could be then in the process before the planning board that the numbers will change. So I'm also recommending that we not take action on this tonight.
We can vote down the motion tonight, or we can withdraw the motion for tonight. But
did we actually make a motion? I think we haven't made a motion yet. We
voted. We didn't make a motion for this.
Right. We just have the interest fee. We don't have a motion yet.
Right. And that would be fine. There may be a chicken and egg thing because I think that normally we have to approve these before the building permit gets done.
Yes.
Right. So, but you're saying it would be after the planning board approval before the building permit.
Mm-hmm.
I did also want to just say that we have currently 73,000 gallons a day of capacity that we do not use, and so I believe that memo just may have been the word choice where it said it wouldn't impact. I think it might have meant wouldn't exceed. So, I don't dispute at all that we need clarification there.
So I think, we really need to have a holistic look at this based on what happened at town meeting with folks wanting to put all sorts of restrictions on the possibility of expanding the plant or expanding the infiltration beds in the future. I think, our sewer capacity could be somewhat limited and finite and really is a precious commodity. And I think we need to take a real strategic look of, is this in the town's entire interest? And then, this property at Fletcher Court, it appears that it does not have frontage on Main Street. So it doesn't even have frontage on a street that is normally sewered. It's just really, really problematic. And there has been, I brought it up at our goal-setting meeting, some discussion about some really strange lot lines and such. So, are you going to say that we've got a frontage because there's a strip of land that goes to one of the houses, is only 2 feet wide, just wide enough to put a sewer line out onto Main Street. You know, I think it's really premature to deal with this.
No, right, no, I'm not arguing that at all. I was just trying to, right, and it may not be in the sewer district. I just was explaining that, you know, you can have a large piece of property, like from a single owner, that has frontage on the sewer district, and it's all included in the district. I have no idea whether this particular property is that case. Jim, did you have any other comments before we move on? Fran, do you have comments? Hemaja, do you have comments on this?
No.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that, you know, we won't take this up tonight, and John, are you okay getting those other pieces of information?
Yeah, this is a request from a developer. It's not a request from the engineering department. The engineering department is just passing the message through, and we certainly could relay the message that we need more information before the sewer commissioners want to consider this one.
Okay. We'll move on. I don't think that we need to specifically exit the sewer commissioners meeting, so we can move on to select board agenda item 4. Mr. Manager, COVID response updates.
Thank you. As I mentioned, the Board of Health is meeting tonight virtually. There are many items on their agenda. One of them is related to looking at the current state guidance, which we're following, and any modifications that the board may want to make to how we handle public health in our buildings and facilities. So, as I mentioned, I will relay anything that comes out of that meeting tonight, either tonight or first thing in the morning. We do have cases active in the community. There was a period between June 12th and July 13th where we had 0 active cases, and that number has steadily increased to now it's 10. It's fluctuated back and forth, but there's currently 10 active cases, current cases in town. Many of these are breakthrough cases, which of course is a case of someone that we understand to be vaccinated that still gets it. So we're very concerned about this, and we're going to, as I mentioned, just follow very closely any guidance that we get from the Board of Health, or if anything else comes down from the state, we will implement that. There's been a lot of questions from members of the public, and we're doing everything we can to implement the measures that we implemented here with the CARES funding to make the buildings safer and spread out. And this virtual meeting is this hybrid virtual meeting is an example of that. We have 17 people that aren't in this room because they're participating remotely, and we continue to do things like that throughout our organization to give people the opportunity to safely do things in a way that they feel comfortable, and we'll continue to do that as we move forward. That's all. I just wanted to kind of give that update, let you know where we are.
Okay, thank you.
Scott Smyers, 382 Central Street. So my question is, we've gone from 0 to 10 cases. Of those 10 cases, are any of them hospitalized? Do we know that, or they're at home isolating? Is that information available?
So we, as part of the contact tracing, we are in touch with everyone that is sick and everyone that someone is sick was in contact with. So we have a pretty good understanding of what's going on with people. Not all the information that we have we can share publicly. Yeah. So I don't know what parts of that I can tell you right now, but.
That's fine. I only just want to make a point. There's thousands of children in our school system that are going to be attending school in a couple of weeks, and that's great to have them back in school. And I'm incredibly fearful that there's going to be some bad decisions made by the school committee, the school administrators, or even this board related to, really not very solid data or quality risk analysis. I mean, we have 10 cases in the whole town. That's very low. And that's not mean they're hospitalized or on death's door, okay? We know that children are less vulnerable and poor carriers. We didn't have any transmission within the school systems last year by children to other children. And I just plead with you, whatever you can do as selectmen to influence logical, common sense rules and not succumb to mask bullies, okay? So please consider that. There's a lot of indirect negative effects from all the precautions if they're not needed, and the masks and kids not being able to see faces and expressions, and that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just so you know, this board would likely be guided by the Board of Health, recommendations. So. Okay, item 5, approve rent increase on AHA affordable units. Mr. Manager.
This is an item that Kelly Cronin, the director of the Acton Housing Authority, asked to put on the agenda, and she is here virtually, I believe, and can speak to this, which I'd like her to help explain this request on the next one, please.
Yes, please.
That works? Kelly?
Kelly should be joining the panel in just a moment.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, thank you. So the Acton Housing Authority has 8 units that are local initiative program units. That means they're part of the 40B inventory in the town of Acton. These units were created over the last 13 years with resources from the town, primarily community preservation funds and ACHC funds. The units rents are set at what someone at 80% of median income can afford. The units are monitored for the town by the Regional Housing Services Organization, and they do annual reviews of our tenant files with the income of the tenants in the units. We haven't raised the rents in years because one of the residents was paying the rent completely on their own. They didn't have a subsidy. So when they got the unit through a lottery, they were at 80% of median income, and their 30% of their income to pay the rent wasn't going up. So we don't do just one unit, we do them all at one time. So we kept the units level. They moved when their son got a job. He's an adult, he graduated from college, and they gave us notice this spring that they were moving. So we have to advertise the unit, and we put in a request to the state, because both the state and the town have oversight to set the rent at the new limits. And because of COVID, they wanted us to set them at the 2019 income limits, what the rents would be for 2019, which are actually what the income levels are in 2018. So that's what we're requesting.
And what is the actual amount, or they vary?
So the new rent would be $1,681 for a 2-bedroom. So the allowed rent at this time, based on the income guidelines, is much higher. The allowed rent is $2,205 for people living at 80% of median income for the new 2022 income guidelines. We're keeping them at the 2018 income guidelines. So what would happen is the units would be advertised. We would do a lottery for all eligible applicants, and whoever comes to the top would get the unit. Most of our residents, 7 out of the 8 have Section 8 subsidies, so everybody pays 30% of their income towards rent, but those folks primarily are below 30% of median income, but because they have a voucher, they're able to pay the rents.
Okay, and one other question for me, and then I'll open up the questions from the board. This change requires board approval because these are local initiative program units. Is that right?
They require the town manager approval, but the town manager wanted to make sure that you all were informed of this program and had input into the decision.
Thank you. Any members of the board have questions for Kelly? Go ahead.
Kelly, well, the reading through the material, the thing that brought me a great sense of ease about this was the explanation about how the Section 8 vouchers work and how people will just be, no matter what the rent is, they'll be paying, what they can afford based on the, the guidelines. And the vouchers make up the rest. Is there a significant probability that we will acquire another tenant who is, exactly at that 80% and is not eligible for a Section 8 voucher? Could we find ourselves in the same situation again?
We could. Anybody who's at 80% of median income can apply. They don't have to have a voucher to apply. So the program is designed for people at 80% and below, not to the very low income like most of our other housing programs are targeted to. So we could have somebody at 80%. We've had tenants live in these units whose income has gone so high that they actually moved out and bought a unit, an affordable home ownership unit. This was the only family that we've had over the last 13 years who didn't have a voucher, whose income wasn't going up, and we protected them by not raising the rent.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm very comfortable with this proposal.
Anybody else on the board have a question?
Sorry. Go ahead, Imogen.
Yeah, so my question is really quick, and then Fran, I'll pass it on to you. In terms of the timing of this, it's a little hard because right now we're trying to increase rent assistance and kind of decrease the financial burden of rent for a lot of our tenants. And this would essentially inevitably increase that burden. I'm wondering, in terms of the timeline, what flexibility is there? Is there any flexibility? Is this something that has to increase now? Is this something we have potentially a year or two to potentially increase? Would love to get your thoughts on that.
So we're asking to set the rents for the units that are vacant now. So there's nobody living in them. We're setting them at the levels that are prescribed by the program. The states asked them to be put at the 2018 income limits, which are much lower than what the existing income limits are for people in Acton at 80%. We're asking to be able to set the new rents for the 2018 limits in 2022 when their annual redetermination is. So for example, let me just find one of the, so the income limits right now for the 2022 rents would be, sorry. Take me one sec to find my documents. So for a 2-bedroom now, if we were to raise it to the allowed 80%, it would be $2,205. We're asking to set it to $1,681. So it's still significantly below what the LIP program allows. We are helping our existing residents in our state public housing now who are behind in rent with the SHIRA program. So anybody who's behind rent in one of our units is automatically eligible and getting rent assistance for the COVID period. So all of those folks are protected. None of these folks have rent issues. And if they did, they'd be protected because there are tenants also for that program. But they're only paying 30% of their income regardless. So they're never going to pay more than 30% of their income for the program. That's what the program is set at. So.
That makes sense. Fran?
Imogen addressed what I was concerned about, and this is limited to a 3-person household. Is that the limit on a 2-bedroom for 3 people?
No, it's not limited to 3 people. 4 people could live there, but the way that the state regulations are written is that you figure out what 80% of median income for this community is for a 3-person household for a 2-bedroom unit. For a 1-bedroom unit, the 80% of median income for a 2-person household is the income that you use. And for a 3-bedroom unit, it's a 4-person household. It's all set by the state regulations.
I would echo Himija that it's kind of a difficult time with COVID and rents, and even having a rental assistance program is kind of difficult right now.
Don't see anyone in the room. Matt, is there anybody online with her hand raised?
Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, are we ready to vote? And we're ready for someone who want to make a motion to approve this.
I would happily move that we approve these rent increases as described in the memo.
For the Acton Housing Authority units.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Jim, would you call the roll? Sorry about all the paper.
David Martin,
Aye.
Dean Charter,
Aye.
Fran Arsenault,
Nay.
Jim Snyder Grant says aye, and Himija Nagaredi.
Nay.
So that's a 3-2, and it passes.
Thank you. The next item, Kelly, is the tenant board position. You want to tell us a little bit about that, please?
Sure. So the state of Massachusetts changed the rules around housing authorities a few years ago by the legislature around governance. Unfortunately, it took until this year for the Department of Housing and Community Development to be able to work out with the Secretary of State the way to fill the tenant board position that was created by that legislation. And for housing authorities that are in towns, what they decided was that the Board of Selectmen would make the appointment. Our board, the Housing Authority Board, outreached to all of our state tenants last winter and held information sessions and invited any interested applicants to a board meeting, an information session. When the rules came out from the State Department of Housing and Community Development, they also wanted to include voucher holders. So people who have Section 8. So we did outreach to those folks this spring and had an information session for them this summer. And any interested residents or voucher holders were explained that they needed to submit a notice of intent to the town clerk. So we have 3 folks who have expressed an interest in being on the board. I submitted their, the clerk gave me their nominations, which I forwarded to the town manager for you all to see. There are 3 applicants. The first one is Reverend Susan Lyons, who spoke earlier. She is the tenant in one of our family units. She included her resume in her notice of intent, which shows that she has a history of working with low income and homeless folks, both on providing housing, job training, and services. And she came to the board meeting that we had this winter and expressed an interest in serving on the board. Melissa Wingfield is one of our voucher holders, and she also expressed an interest and spoke with our board this summer. Melissa has been active in the Housing for All group in Acton and has been involved with the Commission on Disabilities. She's been a long resident in Acton who's had a voucher through us, and she submitted a notice of intent as well. And then the third person who submitted a notice of intent is another one of our family residents, Kim Mazzioli. Kim didn't attend the meetings that we had. I just found out she applied, so I haven't really had a chance to talk too much to her about it, but she's a longtime Acton resident as well, and has been a participant in our program for a long time.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll give the nominees a chance to speak now. Matt, if any of Melissa Winfield, Susan Lyons Murray, or Kimberly Muzioli are on. Well, first of all, if any of you aren't, can you please raise your electronic hand? And Matt, can you call on them, please?
Sure. So I'm just going to do the applicants in the order that their hands went up. So first is Melissa Winfield. Wingfield. My apologies.
Thank you. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be the tenant member of the board?
Hi. Actually, can you see me and hear me?
We can definitely hear you. We don't see you.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I don't see anything on here about the video part.
Probably just hearing you is okay.
Okay. I was asked to be here to be one of the people to be chosen for the Acton Housing Authority Board. I moved to Acton in 2000 and have been a renter with a Section 8 voucher since then. I've been active with the Housing for All and the Commission on Disabilities, and most recently the Climate and Housing Coalition. I just wanted to be an advocate for helping people or giving advice or anything to the Housing Authority for any reason. I just have an interest in being part of that. So that's basically why I want to be on the board.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody on the select board have a question for Melissa? No questions here. Thank you very much, Melissa.
Welcome.
Matt, the next person, please.
This will be the Reverend. Susan, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I was born and raised here in Massachusetts in Westboro, and I moved to Colorado in 1976, but I ended up moving back here to Acton in 2016. I have been working, I've got about 45 years working with homelessness, finding housing for individuals. I'm currently on the board of HRB, homeless organization out of Lowell, where we try to feed and get the people off the street and into detox. In Colorado, I worked with finding regular housing for people, working with low income housing. And then I had a boarding house for the disabled and senior citizen. I'm very familiar and very happy to help in any way that I can. We just started a church here again in Acton, and we are going to be working to try and help whoever we can. We know that housing is going to become a problem soon in the country. So if there's anything we can do to help, I would love to. I don't know if any of you have any questions. As I mentioned earlier, and I apologize for that interruption, I remarried a year ago. So old dogs can learn new tricks. So I can learn a lot from you guys. And if there's anything I can do to help you all, let me know. Any questions?
Any questions from the members of the select board? Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
And Matt, is Kimberly Muzioli on?
Kimberly is on and should be able to speak now.
Hello, Kimberly.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have a little bit of laryngitis. My name is Kim Mazzioli. I've lived in Acton almost all of my life. I graduated from Acton, Boxborough. I raised my kids in Acton. I don't have much experience with being on the board, but I am very familiar with the town, and would love to do something more to be a part of the town that I grew up in and raised my children.
Thank you. Any questions from the select board? Okay, thank you, Kimberly. Imogen, did you have something?
Yes, so sorry. I actually would like to hear, I don't know if it's possible to hear from everyone, but would love to hear one specific idea that you have that you would like to introduce to AHA that you feel like is not being worked on currently or could use more engagement with. Would love to hear your thoughts on what you can bring. And if possible, would love to hear from everybody. Sorry for inconvenience.
Okay, Matt, so if any of the candidates want to answer that question, could you raise your hand? And Matt, could you call on them once again, please?
So Kim's hand was still up. I'm not sure if you have an answer to the question or if you would like to defer to another applicant.
In any order, Matt, whatever, I can't see the hands that are up.
Okay, so we'll hear from Melissa Wingfield. Melissa, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just did. Thank you. I don't have one specific thing to offer that I know of right now. I think that being on the board and listening to things that are going on, I think I might have really good ideas. I pay attention to detail. I'm very, I don't know how to explain it really, but I think I will have a lot to offer by being on the board. And even though I don't have one thing to bring to it right now, I think that I can be helpful with other ideas that are brought up.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
The next candidate, Kelly, did you have something that we wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to let the board know that our board has created an advisory committee because so many residents were interested in participating, but were a little intimidated about having to compete for the role. You know, you all run for office, so I don't know how you felt when you ran for office, but for some people it's very intimidating. So our board told our residents that they would be able to participate on an advisory committee, and they're going to appoint that Thursday at our board meeting. So even if somebody is not appointed tonight by you, we're going to include them in the advisory board so that they can still play a role in helping to give feedback to the organization in an ongoing way. So we just want to make sure people know they're going to be able to contribute regardless if they're put on the board tonight or not.
Okay, thank you. And Matt, are either Susan or Kimberly's hands up to answer the question about an idea they would have for the board?
Susan's hand is up, yes.
Yes, hello. One of the things that I have wondered since I've been in these apartments for over 4 years, and it's a wonderful place, but it saddens me. I know that there has been a number of individuals who have tried. This is a family section here off of Sachin Way. It's all family people. And there's 27 kids or so in the neighborhood. And I was wondering, I know that the idea of putting together some sort of a play area for the kids has been not addressed or wanted or whatever, but could Acton possibly consider some sort of a community center? That's what I would like to see, something where even the other kids in town could go that would be a safe place.
Thank you. And is Kimberly's hand up?
Kimberly does not have her hand up at this. Oh, I'm sorry, it did just go up. She should be able to unmute herself.
Hello, yes. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, as well as I agree that should be something for the children, I was thinking that there should be, I was wondering if there was, you know, like a place for elderly people to maybe some kind of community where they could be supervised during the day or have activities or things to do. We have a lot of elderly in the community, and I had worked at an elderly facility and really felt that, you know, maybe there were some people that could use some company, some entertainment, maybe somebody to bring them food, shopping, things to that nature.
Thank you. Okay, there's no.
Here in the, standing in the room, Matt, are there any members of the public who'd like to make a comment?
There are no hands at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and vote. Jim?
Would it be appropriate for me to make a comment before we voted?
Sure.
Okay. I just wanted to say that I've worked with Melissa in the Acton Committee on Housing and Climate. Mostly that's where we've had the most interactions. And she thinks really carefully. She shares opinions based on her experiences and knowledge. She's calm, she listens well, and she's made a lot of really helpful contributions to that group.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Dean.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment as well. We did receive an email, I think this afternoon, from Franny Osmond, also recommending Melissa Wingfield from her background and her experiences with her as well. So that counts heavily in my mind.
Okay. Anyone else on the board like to make a comment?
I have no comment. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, so we can go through a formal nomination process, or we can just agree to include all three names in as nominated. Are people comfortable with including all three names? And then here's the way I would suggest that we vote. That we vote with all three names, and instead of yay or nay, say the name of the person you'd like to vote for. If someone gets a majority of us, so 3 votes, we're done. If someone does not get a majority, then we'll drop the person with the lowest vote count and vote once more with the remaining 2. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's kind of an immediate runoff.
Yes, that makes sense to me. I just had to think through the combinations and whether we would end up in some odd deadlock, but I can't see how that would happen, so I'm fine.
I think it always works.
Okay.
And fortunately, we don't have like 25-member boards, so we don't have to go through every permutation of that.
Can I make a quick comment? Can I go back on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to thank all the applicants. Yes. I really appreciate you stepping up, and it's so much fun to be on a board in your town.
Okay, so we've agreed to have all 3 names in nomination. As Jim calls your name, please say the name of the nominee that you'd like to vote for. I'll remind you that the names are Melissa Wingfield, Susan Lyon Murray, and Kimberly Muzioli. I guess, Jim, would you call the roll?
Sure. David Martin.
Melissa Wingfield.
Dean Charter.
Melissa Wingfield.
Fran Arsenault.
Melissa Wingfield.
James Snyder Grant. I'll also vote for Melissa Wingfield. And Imogen Margaretti.
Melissa Wingfield, but yeah, want to thank everyone.
Yeah. That's a unanimous vote for Melissa Wingfield.
Thank you. Congratulations, Melissa, and thank you again to all the candidates for putting yourself out there and you know putting yourself up for consideration. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And thank you, Kelly. The next thing on our agenda is to approve the local initiative program for the 26 Carlisle Road property for use by Habitat for Humanity, or development by Habitat for Humanity. Anybody want to make a comment before we have a motion? Jim?
I just wanted to appreciate the local Habitat for Humanity program, and it took me to read through a little bit before I found out that their target for this unit will be people earning between 30% and 60% of the area median income. There was earlier references in the document to 80% of median income, but that just had to do with, what sorts of programs are eligible to be, what sort of housing is eligible to be in these kind of programs at all. And I think that, finding an ownership opportunity for people of, very low to low income is, it's a wonderful effort, and I'm glad it's happening.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the LIP program as described in the packet for 26 Carlisle Road?
Sure. I almost did, so I might as well. So I would move that we approve the local initiative program application for local action units, Habitat for Humanity, 26 Carlisle Road.
I'll second.
Thank you. I see no one here in the room. Matt, is there anybody online who would like to speak?
Sorry, I got the list pulled up. There is no one at this time who wishes to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Anybody on the board like to make a final comment before we vote? Jim, would you please call the roll?
I just have to get back to the magic page where I wrote the order that I'm calling people in. Here we go. David Martin.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
Fran Arsenault.
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant. Aye. Himogen Nagareddy.
Aye.
That's unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item 8, presentation of the Energize Actin website. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. This is an exciting program that Andrea Becerra, our Sustainability Director, is going to show us. She's here virtually. Actually, if you could promote her a panelist so she can share her screen, that'd be helpful. Just a note on this website, this is an idea that I think Jim brought up last summer or some time ago, and I said, hold on, wait till we get a Sustainability Director, and now we have one. And it's an example of one of the many collaborations that she has made in the community, this one with the Acton Climate Coalition. So, Andrea, welcome. Take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, members of the Select Board. Very excited to present this. I'm going to share my screen. So this is the Energize Acton site. And of course, Jim is quite familiar with this because he's been involved with the Acton Climate Coalition. So he's certainly seen this before, and he's one of the community admins. But I'll dive into all those details later. So this is the home page. So there's a few other communities that are a part of this Mass Energized community, including Wayland and Concord and Lexington. So the town of Acton joined in partnership with the Acton Climate Coalition. And this is still the beta version. So we have a few folks that are testing it. We had a little mini test launch at the West Acton Coffee House about a month ago or a few weeks ago. And essentially it was just to get people to familiarize themselves with the site, get some immediate feedback from the community before we do the official launch in September. This was really, I will say this is an effort that's really been spearheaded by volunteers. They've really put in all this really hard work in researching actions to include
So the actions essentially are actions that individuals can take. So if you're an Acton resident or a business owner or an employee like me, you can create an account on this site, and let me just walk you through it. So you click here on Take Action, and there's 14 actions here that individuals can take. And to give you some examples, I'll just read through these and then maybe walk you through one as a sample action. So there's opt up to APC, the 100% green electricity option in Acton, clean heating and cooling, so switching to heat pumps, take the zero emission pledge, insulate and weatherize to the max, install solar on your roof, savings for renters, drive electric, stay up to date with the Acton Climate Coalition if you want to do more beyond these actions, eat more plant-based meals, calculate your carbon footprint, consider climate-driven investments, gardening and composting, clean your cooking in the kitchen, and buy less stuff. So it's a really fun way to engage take part in climate action and reduce your greenhouse gas emissions on your own or at home or with a team. You can create teams. So let me just take you to the Teams portal. So here's some sample teams that have been set up. So there's the Acton Center, Acton EV enthusiasts, Acton. Did someone say something?
No.
Okay. Acton Tenants team, Mothers Out Front, Acton, North Acton. You get the idea. And so we're going to have a lot more teams. There's actually a goal. If you go to the home page, if you scroll down, right here, it says 270 households joining Energize Acton in 2021. So the goal is once the website is fully launched, that we get a lot of people excited about the website. So let me go ahead and walk you through a sample action. So actually, this is really cool. So you can do category, impact. Let's put high impact. So these are examples of things you can do that can have a really high impact. So high greenhouse gas emissions reduction potential. So you can mark to do so that you remember to do it when you hop onto the website, and then you click on action. You read through it, you get a little description, you follow the steps to take. This one's quite simple, just 1, 2, 3. Then you go to testimonials, and of course Jim is on here. He has a testimonial on here. And then you go to deep dive and you get like all the fun details if you want to nerd out and you want to learn more about this particular action. So each action has, they're not all the same in the sense that some have a lot of information and some have just like your basic information that you need to know. And so once you've done it, you click done. And then I'll give you an example. We're on my profile, so I'll go to my profile, and then it tells you how many actions you've completed, how many actions you have to do, and it gives you like a little calculation of your carbon emissions reductions. And then you can see what teams you're in, what your households are, and the other things I should mention really quickly is the idea is to have a different focus each month. So there's a lot happening, a lot that will be happening in September on a heat pump program that we're launching with Abode. And so stay tuned for that. So that's going to be the first, for that month, for the month that we launch this, we're going to be focusing on that heat pump program. And it's just going to be a fun way to like change it up and choose a different theme each month and focus on the education of that particular action. So I don't know if I'm missing anything. Jim, do you want to add anything?
Of the various towns that are involved in mass Energize sites, we're one of the very few where this is a partnership between the town itself and a community group. Most of these are community group driven. So it gives us a real, a special opportunity to do more complete publicity and reach more people and, help build the excitement. You'll see the, the logo in the upper left has both the Climate Coalition and the town of Acton. And I'm really pleased we were able to work with John and Andrea to, to navigate how to do that.
Great. And the reason this is still in beta version is because there's some technical glitches that we have to fix. And there's also a copy editing process it's going through with the volunteers, some icons that are going to get redesigned. So you're seeing it sort of still at the beginning stages, but you get an idea of how it's going to work.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? I don't see any. Himija, I can't see you with this up, so if you have a comment or need to get my attention, just say something, please.
Great. Oh, yeah. I do actually have a comment. First of all, I absolutely love the website. It looks really exciting. I love how it's action oriented. I love how it's community based and that we're working with different partners. So really excited.
It explains why we're doing this, the grand scope of why we're doing this, to really get people motivated to take action on climate. And then the second question is, do we mention anything regarding climate justice or environmental justice in the website?
So in the About Us section, you do hear, this is definitely could use a little bit of fluffing up, but this is where you could write about sort of like what inspired this website. We can talk about the emergency declaration, which is sprinkled in the different actions, but that's a great idea, and this is a great place to do that. This could also be a place where we could mention the environmental justice communities in Acton, which there are parts of Acton that are considered environmental justice communities by the Massachusetts government, the way they define environmental justice. So we can certainly include that as well, and also include the climate justice angle as well. But I would say that this is definitely the place for that. So that's really helpful feedback.
Great, thank you so much. And again, this looks amazing.
Thank you.
Andrea, is it the intent to have this linked from the town's website? And if so, what part of the town's website?
That's a really great question. So certainly, actually, let's just go to the town website. Essentially, it would be from if you check out the sustainability page, and then you go to tips to act on climate, there's a much more watered down version of the Energize Acton site. Not as exciting, not as fun, but essentially a list of 5 actions people can take to act on climate. And so this would be a really good place for that, or maybe even on the main sustainability page. So essentially, it definitely would live within the sustainability page. And then when the page goes live, there would be a news flash, so it would be on the home site for a little bit, and then on the municipal monthly as well.
Great, yeah, we could even possibly have the link use the Mass Energize logo, so that, it just stands out a little bit.
That's a great idea.
Any other comments from the board?
Just curious if the schools were even involved. This seems like such a nice tool for our school-aged kids too.
Actually, the schools are not the entire school. So students that are involved in the climate action planning process. So there's the Acton Boxborough Regional School District has a group of students called the Resource Force, and they have their own little climate action planning workshop process. So they're mirroring what we're doing at the school level, and they're doing amazing work, actually doing their own survey. And as part of the meetings we've had, I did show them the website. And so they plan on creating a school team In that sense, they are involved, and it would sort of be up to them to push it out in schools.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you all.
It looks really good. Item 9, discuss the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives invitation to join ICLEI, ICLEI 150, in the Race for Zero.
So this is a request that came before the board last month, and we wanted to hear from our sustainability director and her team. And we did receive a memo with Andrea's thoughts on this. Andrea, do you want to summarize them for the board?
Sure. So essentially, we're already doing a lot of the work that's required to join this race. We have to report our emissions, which we already did through the Carbon Disclosure Project this year, so we're already on a database. And then the other thing is we have to show what actions we're going to take to reduce our emissions, which we're doing, of course, through the climate action planning process. And then in addition to that, they do ask for us to do a little video promoting it, a 5-minute video, which I think is pretty easy. I think the harder part is coming up with the actions to reduce our emissions and actually reducing them. The 5-minute video I think should be easy to put together. And then they do say about 15 minutes per month for the town to participate on a social media campaign. So really, one of the things I believe Jim mentioned at the last select board meeting was whether or not it would the fact that Acton is quite ambitious in its target set through the emergency declaration. I will point that Ann Arbor, in the declaration, it states that we want to reach net zero by 2030 as soon as possible with a target date of 2030. And Ann Arbor also has a similar target date. And they're also part of this race to zero by 2050. Even though the deadlines don't match up with the race to zero, there are other municipalities in similar positions, and we're really just joining this broader momentum and push for climate action, which I think is pretty neat to be part of something that's broader and bigger, given that this issue is global. So the recommendation on the memo, which is much more detailed and much better laid out than what I just said, essentially states that there's really more pros than cons, and the cons are really a time commitment, I would say, of which we are already committing time to.
Right, it doesn't sound like the time commitment is enormous. Right, 15 minutes a month?
That's right, yeah.
I'll call you just a second. And would you need, are you asking for a vote from the board tonight to join?
So in order to join, we do have to sign a letter, and it has to be signed by elected officials. And so in Lexington, it was signed by the select board, and then you have to make a statement. We could vote on that today, and we could prepare a statement now. I'm not sure how that would work, actually. You could vote to sign it and then do the statement later. I'm not sure how you would want to handle it.
Do you happen to have a recommended statement?
I don't. We could come up with one right now. I don't, though.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to have us wordsmith one now. Let me just think about that for a minute, and we'll get comments from the board in the meantime. Dean, you had your hand up.
Yeah, a couple of questions. So if we're doing all these things anyway under the Climate Action Plan, so what is the point behind signing this declaration? And I'm concerned about this declaration getting politicized and used against us for some reason. What happens if we don't meet these goals? If we don't meet the goals we set for ourselves, that's one thing, shame on us. But if we don't meet the goals that now, I'm concerned, ICLEI supposedly comes down and gives us a target that we're supposed to meet. And the way I read it, it seems like we sign the declaration, we agree to, that we're going to meet whatever goal they set for us. And I'm a little concerned about agreeing to something that I haven't actually seen what the target is that they're suggesting. So I think, you know, I see more cons than pros in this point.
Other members have comments? Jim, please.
Sure. Some of the advantages we do get some technical assistance from ICLEI that will be helping out with the details of our climate action plan. We also get, I think as an intangible, we get to, we're developing a reputation in the state as a leader in sustainability, and this helps multiply that impact, which I think creates a positive, sense of Acton across the state and the country. So I'm excited about both those aspects. That, to me, that would outweigh to me, the risk of not reaching these goals is more of a worldwide risk. We need to reach these goals in order to have a chance of avoiding, the worst of impacts of climate change. So I'm more worried about that than I am about, whether someone's going to point at us and say, there are all these towns and you didn't do it. That seems unlikely to me, that would happen and would have a bad impact on us.
Fran or Hemidja? Hemidja, please go ahead.
Thank you. So I guess one question, and Jim, you touched upon this briefly, but would love to hear what Andrea and you think about this. But one thing that Andrea, we talked about was the difficulty in achieving a 2030 goal of net zero for the town of Acton. Would participating in this program help inform that, especially because, like you mentioned, there are different cities that do have a 2030 net zero target that have signed on to this? Is there that type of collaboration between different municipalities and different towns? And how would that potentially help us?
That's a great question. Should I answer that, Jim?
Oh,
please go ahead.
All right. Yeah, definitely. This is an opportunity to increase collaboration with other municipalities and learn about the actions that they're taking. So the one municipality on here that has a net zero by 2030 target is Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so it's definitely a good excuse to collaborate with them more closely and learn about, they already have their climate action plan and they've already mapped that pathway. So it'd be great to learn about, what sort of challenges are they facing now that they've already published these targets and have implemented a climate action plan, and learn about it from a municipal staffing perspective. That could bring a lot of value for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Imogen, do you have anything else?
I'm all set on my end.
Okay.
Did you have something? So I'm generally supportive of this. I mean, I actually share some of Dean's concerns, but with our 2030 goal, right? I would have, I had some concerns which I expressed to Jim at the time, that, if we have goals that we can't or don't reach, people will just, my concern is that people would just dismiss them as being, the whole thing is being nonsense. And so, but I think the goals in this program are achievable and quite necessary. So I'm pretty supportive, and I completely agree with Jim in that it just kind of adds a little bit of momentum to the efforts. So if I'm wondering if we want to have Andrea draft a statement for us that we would vote at a future meeting.
Yeah, I think that if the board were to support this and ask us to do that, we definitely could, or do you want to wait to do both at the same time?
You know what, we confirm that we want to do this. If someone wants to make a motion now that we ask staff to prepare us a statement to join ICLEI.
I'll move that. So that we know exactly what we're signing on to. I'd like to see it in writing, have a chance to digest it before we vote on it.
Great, thank you. Someone want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any other comment from the board? I'll take, Matt, are there any comments from the public?
We do have one hand up, Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead.
Deborah Symes. Deborah, you should be able to speak.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, David. I should lower my hand, sorry. I just want to piggyback quickly on both Jim's and Andrea's comments that, to go to Dean's comment. And that is that, as Jim, mentioned, we are, Acton's being understood as a bit of a leader in this sector across the Commonwealth. And in fact, people, we in the Climate Coalition and we in Green Acton, and I know Andrea as well, have all, fielded calls and emails and stuff from people in other surrounding towns saying, hey, what are you guys doing? We know you're really active. We want to learn and emulate what you're doing. So a huge piece of mobilizing people on climate is to create that kind of momentum. If we can do it in the Commonwealth, that's awesome. If we can help build it nationally by being one, with Ann Arbor of a couple of groups that are going at this ambitiously, then I think that's all to the good and important, because obviously it's going to take a whole bunch of the world to get this to happen. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. We have a motion.
Made comments, so we can go ahead and vote. Please, Jim, if you could call the roll.
Sure. And this is the motion to direct the staff to prepare a formal statement for us?
Statement for us to join.
Great.
ICLEI.
Okay.
ICLEI.
The ICLEI 150. Okay. David Martin?
Aye.
Dean Charter?
Aye.
Fran Arsenault?
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant? Aye. Imogen Nagaretti?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Super. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Number 10, appoint liaison to the Regional Emergency Communications Center Board. Do you want me to describe, or do you want to describe this?
I'll just give it a quick go. So the towns of Acton and Concord signed a governance agreement to establish a Regional Emergency Communications Center. And as part of that governance agreement, created a board of directors, of which I am one of two members. The town manager in both towns are the board of directors. The town of Concord has appointed a liaison from their select board to attend those meetings, or just be kind of the point person from the select board. And I thought that was a good idea. So and David did too. So this is a request for this board to see if anyone's interested in serving in that liaison role and attending the meetings, or just being the person that's the liaison for that effort.
So I think it's good to for us to have a liaison, since Concord has a liaison. And I was wondering if Dean would be interested in being the liaison to the dispatch board.
Yes, I'd be interested in it. Amongst other things, I did help build the present dispatch center about 20 years ago. So I'm already a little bit up to speed, although I'm 20 years older, as are all the computers. But yes, I'd like to serve.
It's amazing to me that that's been there for 20 years. Would someone like to make a motion to name Dean liaison to the Regional Emergency Communications Center Board?
I move the motion to appoint a liaison, Dean Charter, to the Regional Emergency Communications Center Board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Any hands raised by the public? Matt?
There are no hands at this time, Mr. Chair.
Great. Jim, could you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. David Martin?
Aye.
Dean Charter?
Aye.
Fran Arsenault?
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant, aye. Imogen Nagaretti?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Great. Item 11, CARES Act funds update. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. As mentioned briefly earlier, we received just over $2 million from the CARES Act package that was distributed from the federal government a few years ago, or about a year ago. We used that to do a lot of things in this organization and in the school district. We provided care, and there was a presentation that Laura Ducharme gave about all the different supports to the community that we were able to provide with that funding. And so, in each step of the way, I came to the board and said, this is what we're thinking for this next group of funding, and the board said, okay. So this is sort of the last group of funding, and I just want to make sure you're comfortable with how we're going to, or how I'm proposing to use it. So we have just over 200,000 left out of the 2 million, and we were going to use just under 100 of that for some final IT-related upgrades for Zoom rooming the rest of our facilities, for example, and things like that, and other technology-related things. We're proposing to allocate another 50,000 to the very successful rental assistant program that Laura Ducharme administered for us, or that Laura Ducharme did for, but the Regional Housing Office administered for us. And we think that 50,000 is the right amount because we actually can't, we can only go through October 26th. We can't use it for the rest of this year, so we think 50,000 is the right amount of money to be able to give people help for the next month and a half or so. And if we had more, we probably wouldn't be able to use it fast enough. Otherwise, we would have asked for more. And then approximately 35,000 to help support the food program at the school district. And that should add up to just over 200. There's a couple other small, paying for our virtual meeting coordinator. We'd like to keep him on as long as possible, and things like that. We're going to continue to use the funding for, and contact tracing. So if any of that is a concern, if you could let me know, or a formal vote would be helpful too, that you're comfortable with that general plan. However you want to move forward, I'd appreciate it.
So if someone makes a motion to approve the funding as described by the town manager, that would be great, and then we can discuss for any details.
Yep, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Comments from board members? You look like you might speak, Jim. Okay. Fran, did you have?
No,
And Imogen, did you have something?
Actually, so sorry, can you run through the breakdown again? 'Cause I was trying to take notes, but I missed a few, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Just over 90,000 for IT and virtual meeting needs. 50,000 for rental assistance. 35,000 for the food program at the school district. And actually, I didn't mention this, but 34,000 for other public health response things that we think aren't going to be eligible for FEMA support. So that should equal just over, that should equal 215.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And any comments by members of the public, Matt?
There are none at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Maybe by now I've memorized, Maybe by now I've memorized the order, but I'm just not confident of that. David Martin?
Aye.
Dean Charter?
Aye.
Fran Arsenault?
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant, aye. Imogen Nagaretti.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 12, approve extension of reduced parking rate of $25 per month at the reserved spots at the train station.
This is an action that the board has taken in several phases since the pandemic hit and commuter traffic completely stopped last March. We have a lot of reserved parking spaces that people don't want to reserve if they don't even need to use them, but they also don't want to lose them once they do need them. So rather than making them pay the full freight to have a spot that just sits there anyways, the board agreed to reduce that monthly rate to $25 for them to basically have a placeholder for their spot. And it looks like we kept pushing it every 3 months or so, and at this point, we're asking the board to extend it through the end of the calendar year with that same rate for the reserved spaces.
So what I'm hearing through the MBTA advisory board is they had originally expected this fall that car traffic would go back up and there'd be huge traffic jams, and then people would transition back to using the train over the course of the next year. So they actually expected by approximately September 2022 that train usage might return to pre-pandemic levels. But now with the Delta variant, that's kind of thrown their predictions up in the air. So whereas they were predicting next fall, now it's probably after that. And so I agree that this extension is nowhere near that long. This extension is just through the rest of this calendar year. And so I think we should do this, and allows people to keep their spaces should things return. I think there'll be some uptick over the winter, but I think it's not going to be on track to return to normal by next fall. And that goes along with the kind of official state recommendations or forecasts. Jim.
I had a question. Are the parking spaces oversubscribed? I mean, are there people that would like to get parking permits that can't get them now?
That's a good question. We had to do a lottery when we acquired these new spaces.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, the demand outweighed it. I suspect that the waiting list is no longer there. I think this is a request coming from the finance who manages these spaces. I think they see the alternative being people just abandoning their spaces and not paying anything. But if there is a waiting list, I could certainly let you know.
I guess I'd be curious about that before we extend it again. I don't want to exclude people who are actually interested in, using a space frequently, if at the expense of people that, just happen to have a space and want to pay a lot less for it because they're not going to really use it until later. But if there's not a big waiting list, then this seems eminently sensible.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're okay with extending it this time, but before we extend it past December 31st, we should know if there's a waiting list. Understood.
Exactly.
Any other comments? Himija?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Just echoing what Jim said, I think it would be interesting to see what the lottery looked like. Even if we redo a lottery and not increase the prices moving forward from December, I think trying to find ways for it to be fair. If we do have more demand than availability, I think that would be a good move. But for now, yeah, I think that moving forward with extending this is a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt, any comments from members of the public?
There are no comments at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I would take a motion to approve the reduced $25 per month reserve parking fee at the train station through the end of the calendar year. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been made and seconded. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. David Martin.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
Fran Arsenault.
Aye.
Jim Snyder-Grant. Aye. Himogen Nagareddy.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. And it turns out, it doesn't actually make a difference what order I call people in, so that's helpful to learn.
Not for unanimous votes.
No.
Anyway.
Just before, there is no wait list currently.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Item 13, approve private way plowing for the 21 to 22 winter. Mr. Manager.
This is something that I'd like Corey to step in and help explain exactly what we're asking here for. Corey York, the Public Works Director, I believe is out there.
Or you should be joining the panel in just a moment.
How you doing?
Hi, Corey.
Yeah, so this is an annual program that the town has. We've been doing it for the most part as long as I've been here. In the beginning, what it was the town was appropriating funding, and we had this petition that private way owners could submit requesting, and we'd go through a review process. I believe back maybe around 2008, when the economy was bad, we opted out of appropriating money, but now it's a fee structure. So we go through the same petition process, but if approved, the private way owners pay a fee. So what we do is we calculate what it costs us to plow a street, and then they pay that amount. So the town's not appropriating funds towards this. It's the private way owners that are paying, and we have a condition in the agreements that they fill out that in the event we have a really severe year and it exceeds sort of what we estimated, we can go back and ask for more funds to cover the remainder of the winter season if need be. But we go through and look at what our costs are, and so we have a rate that we're looking to have approved to proceed with this for the upcoming winter season.
Thank you. Any questions for Director York from the board? Jim?
Hi, Corey. Are there situations in which some private ways you would want to charge more or less than the standard rate? It seems like some private ways might be more complex or something, or are we trying to establish is our plan generally to have a set rate for all private ways?
We have a set rate. I mean, we look the rate that I look at is homogenized across town. But we do, in our criteria, we have it established so that some of these smaller private ways that maybe we just can't get our standard plowing equipment into the plow, so that it would be very difficult to do. We have a vision that doesn't meet our needs, because what we don't want to do is be spending a lot of time in a really narrow road trying to open it up and not getting to our major roads. So this is sort of a system that we've established over the last probably couple decades that if it meets the criteria and it's something that we can get in, plow fairly easily and get out, that can be approved through this program.
Great, thank you.
And Jim, you are aware it's a rate per foot?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure that you think it was a
flat rate for a street.
But thanks for clearing that.
And is it just for those two streets that we need a motion for? Heronview Road and Windcliff Drive?
No, this is for any private way that wants to try a chemical petition, they get approved. It's been historically, those two streets have been the only ones that have applied that met the criteria and was approved for plowing.
I understand.
So can I just?
Yeah, please.
Sorry.
How many participants we have? Is it only 2 now? And how many do you anticipate this winter?
We've in the last, I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, we've only had maybe 3 or 4 streets that have applied, but the other streets that have come in were extremely narrow, difficult for our trucks to get in, really no snow storage. It would be a very difficult maneuver for us to do. So the other ones that have applied just didn't meet our criteria for the program.
Thank you. Thanks.
Other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, sorry, quick question. So
I'm looking at the financial information. I was wondering if you could explain if you could go into more detail on what this might cost to the town, what that is projected to look like for this winter session, or if there aren't going to be any significant costs added.
Are you asking like how I've determined the rate? Like what am I looking at or?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so what I do is I go through an exercise of looking at our prior budgets and current budgets. So I look at what we expended last year through a snow and ice budget. I look at, in addition to just the snow and ice budget, I also look at staff time. So I look at the various departments that are operating when we're doing snow removal. So we're looking at the highway budgets, the public facilities, natural resources, looking at those budgets. I'm apportioning not all their time, just sort of looking at a percentage of their time during the sort of the winter months. I also look at our machinery budget. So I looking at the equipment that's being used and sort of applying sort of a replacement cost and a fraction of that based on the same premise that out of say 4 months out of the year, part of those 4 months we're using it towards equipment. So there's sort of wear and tear on that. We look at the addition to the fleet costs. I look at our maintenance budgets and sort of look at the repair costs and do a similar kind of apportionment of that. And then I look at fuel budgets. So when I look at those, I look at sort of our current budget that's coming through and apportion those. And I kind of, once I get that total, then I divide it by the public miles to see if the rate that we've been using is adequate.
Thank you.
I would take a motion to approve the private way plowing proposal as defined in the packet.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll vote, please, Jim.
Hemingen Nagareti.
Aye.
Mix it up. Fran Arsenault.
Aye.
David Martin.
Aye.
Dean Charter.
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant is also aye. That's another unanimous vote.
And our last new business item for tonight is to approve the proclamation, our proclamation, to be read at the 9/11 ceremony. I can, you can think about it just for a second. I'm going to ask the town manager to comment on the plans. But if you want me to read the proclamation, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you. So, as mentioned previously, this is the 20th year since the attacks on September 11th, and so we're going to have another ceremony as we have in the last few, every year. We're going to try to have another one, and the board is, of course, hopefully we'll all attend and be invited to attend and a representative to speak at that event. And we thought it'd be nice to have a proclamation from the board, whether it's used that day to read or not. It'd be a nice way to just commemorate this 20th and recognize the families that lost loved ones in town and the public safety officials and what the sacrifices that were made. So that's really what it is, and it's before you for your consideration, and invite you all to be part of the event that day. Onto Saturday morning. It's going to start at 10 a.m. This year. In the past, it started just before 10 a.m., but just so you know, 10 a.m. start.
Thank you. I mean, I think we should read this at the ceremony. Do people want me to read it before we discuss it?
I'd appreciate that. It's a wonderful, solemn proclamation, and I think hearing it helps, evoke the solemn feelings involved. So I would prefer to hear it out loud, yes.
Okay. Whereas on September 11, 2001, terrorists hijacked 4 aircraft
crashing 2 into the north and south towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, crashing 1 into the Pentagon near Washington, D.C., and 1 forced into a Pennsylvania field in a passenger counterattack to seize control of the aircraft. And whereas 2 Acton residents, Madeline Amy Sweeney, a crew member, and Philip Rosenzweig, a passenger, both on American Airlines Flight 11, the first aircraft to be deliberately crashed into the North Tower, perished along with thousands of innocent victims from over 90 countries that day. And whereas the Acton 9/11 Memorial Committee designed and constructed a new memorial located at the Public Safety Facility, incorporating the original memorial constructed on the town common using recovered steel from the World Trade Center, supported by the generous donations of funds and services from residents and businesses, and was dedicated on the 10th anniversary of the attacks. And whereas September 11th, 2021 is the 20th anniversary of the attacks. Now, therefore, the Acton Select Board proclaims September 11th, 2021 as the 20th anniversary of 9/11 Day of Service and Remembrance, honoring the lives lost with service to be held at Acton Public Safety 9/11 Memorial in the morning of Saturday, September 11th, 2021. Jim.
I would move that we approve this resolution.
Second. Any discussion? Hemichek.
Thank you. Yeah, just 2 quick things. One is,
This is a little nitpicky, I apologize. Where it says, the first sentence, whereas on September 11th, 2021, terrorists hijacked 4 aircrafts, so plural. And the second thing is, do we want to add something where towards the bottom it says honoring the lives of those lost with the service to be held? I wonder if we should also include the families of those who were affected, who did lose their loved ones. So saying like honoring the lives of those lost and their families with the service to be held. I think those are just some recommendations. If we want to use them or not, I'll defer to the rest of the board.
Okay.
I'll take the second one first, just for a sense of the board. So I think she's suggesting honoring the lives of those lost and their families. Any objections to inserting that? No objections. So Lisa, if you could insert that, please. And then the first one, I think aircraft is correct. Does that need to be plural? I mean, I think.
I could be wrong. I'm wrong, I apologize.
No, that's okay. I would say that is aircraft. I don't know if aircraft can be plural.
I have the same impression as well, that it's one of those odd nouns that's plural without an S at the end. Like they.
Okay, so that seems to be okay with people. Jim, would you amend your motion to include with the lives of those lost and their families?
Yes, that's a wonderful, friendly amendment. I happily accept it.
And Jim, Dean, would you re-second?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Matt, are there any hands raised from the public?
Mr. Chair, there are no hands at this time.
Thank you. Charlie, would you like to make a comment?
Yes. It's always hard to believe how many years it's been, and the fact that no one in our high school down and lower was alive at the time. Now this year, the celebration will be on a Saturday, and it's also somewhat more relevant given what's going on in Afghanistan. I would suggest that you, the Select Board, send an invitation to the school committee to publicize this celebration, because there have seldom been any kids usually because it's weekday. This year, it's not only possible, but highly relevant. Anyway, back to my point, to suggest to the school board that they publicize this celebration, perhaps make some arrangements to send a busload kids who may want to attend, because what's going on in Afghanistan, which is directly related to this, is going to affect the lives of these kids more than anything else we've been discussing tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Manager.
I just wanted to thank Assistant Town Manager Mark Holt for putting that proclamation together.
Yep. Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and vote.
Brian Arsenault,
Aye.
David Martin,
Aye.
Dean Charter,
Aye.
Imogen Nagaredi,
Aye.
Jim Snyder Grant also says aye. That's unanimous.
Okay, I will now do the consent items. I'll read them. If there is one that a member would like to hold, please just say hold. 15, approve meeting minutes, July 26th and August 2nd, 2021. 16, approve executive session minutes, July 26th, 2021. 17, adopt select board goals established August 2nd, 2021. 18, approve minor amendment, site plan special permit number 521-2020-479, 50 Nagog Park. Number 19, committee appointment, Fang Yang, full member, volunteer coordinating committee, term to expire June 30th, 2024. 20, accept gift, Acton Police Department for $5,000 from Digital Credit Union to be used towards efforts in providing programs and services that make a difference in the community.
Mr. Chair, just a brief point of order. It seems like the agenda that was posted to the public is numbered slightly differently, starting at item 16 as approved meeting minutes, rather than 15.
Hold on. Why is that?
Because there was a duplicate of the appointing of liaison to the Regional Emergency Communications Center Board on item number 14.
Okay.
So the one I printed out was not the one that was posted.
Okay.
That was my error, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, just so everyone knows, the numbering could be off by one compared to the agenda that was in the packet. 21, accept gift Recreation Division for $50 from Stephanie Jandal to be used for constructing a dog park in Acton. 22, approve refund request Cemetery Division for $100 for internment fee. 23, accept easements 29 Prospect Street and 66 School Street for planting one shade tree. 24, approve one-day alcoholic beverage license, Ironwork Farm, Faulkner Homestead 5 High Street, October 2nd, 2021. Approve fee waiver request, Ironwork Farm. And 26, approve one-day alcoholic beverage license, Acton Boxborough United Way, Narrow Park, September 10th, 2021. I'll take a motion to approve consent items 15 through 26 inclusive.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Jim Snyder Grant says aye. Dean Charter?
Aye.
David Martin?
Aye.
Fran Arsenault?
Aye.
Imogen Nagaredi?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay, if no one has anything else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been made and seconded. Jim, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. I vote yes, Jim Snyder Grant. How about you, Dean Charter?
Aye.
David Martin?
Aye.
Fran Arsenault?
Aye.
Imogen Nagaredi?
Aye.
That's it. We're done.
We're adjourned. Thank